Hey, it's your friend Choice CJ here, and today I will be bringing you my draft recap for PMC Season 2. Now, I was very fortunate to get selected from the D-League rosters and get bumped up into the regular season lineup. Aki, of course, the great player that he is, was the winner of the D-League, so he also got promoted. I only made it to the first round of the playoffs, but J-Specs and I are good friends, and I've done a lot of stuff helping him out, so he thought it was only fair that I get bumped up to the regular season roster. And there's going to be 16 teams in this league. A lot of people I haven't played against before. Aki, I think, is one of the only people I have played against. Kyle as well, aka Lugia XX, I guess is his YouTube name. Played against him. It's funny, I am close friends with folks like Verd and J-Specs, but I've never played them in a battle before. So this is going to be a good opportunity for us to face off against them, especially Verd. Verd is in our division. So it's going to be really pretty intense to see how this whole thing unfolds. But enough about that. Let's just quickly talk about my overall draft strategy. So the first thing that I noticed right off the bat is that there are a bunch of Mega Pokemon that I thought were really undervalued. For example, Mega Heracross was in Tier 3, Mega Houndoom was in Tier 4, stuff like that. And as you can see on the screen here, we also had Mega Steelix down in Tier 4. Now, I'm not trying to say that Mega Steelix is the best Mega Pokemon that's out there, but I think for the opportunity to gain 80 points in our bonus pool, it was really worth it to try and chase after something like Mega Steelix. And in case you aren't familiar with how the draft format works, I'll try and go through it as quickly as I can. Basically, you have to select Pokemon from different tiers. There's tiers 1 through 5. You have to draft one Pokemon from each tier, except for tier 3, where you have to draft 2 Pokemon. Then you draft a Mega Pokemon, and depending upon how good of a Mega Pokemon you draft, you may or may not get extra points that gets added to a baseline bonus pool of 400 points. And with those 400 plus points that you have, you get to draft 4 additional Pokemon from any tier, and each tier is worth a different number of points. So, like, for example, tier 1 is 180 and tier 5 is 40. So you can really strategize based on that and the Mega Pokemon that you select. How can I make the best possible team of 11 with the points that I'm given? And so, with that in mind, I knew I wanted Steelix, and I wanted to get a team kind of built around that. I'm not going to be bringing Steelix every week, I'm sure. It's not a Pokemon like, Mega Charizard or Mega Scizor or, something like that. It's a Pokemon that you can really build around week by week. But I just thought for the where it was placed, it was just a really tremendous value. Like, this thing just got banned from RU. It's very good. I don't know quite why it's in Tier 4. I think it's better than that. So, I think a lot of draft strategies should revolve around getting undervalued Pokemon and things like that. So yeah, even though Steelix isn't going to come every week, I've got enough Pokemon to really make up for that, and so I'm not all that worried. So with just the team building and synergy in mind, the first Pokemon that I took was Candy, the Sylveon, and I think it's pretty clear what this thing does. It has probably the most spammable fairy move in the entire game with the Pixelate boosted Hyper Voice. Also has the ability to Wish Pass. It can go for Calm Minds, things like that. It just has a very good bulk because it's got a very big HP stat, relatively speaking. So we can use this to pass big wishes into Pokemon if we need. It can be a Cleric with Heal Bell support. It can Baton Pass, which is really nice for momentum purposes or for passing things like Calm Mind and things like that. So this was the Pokemon that I made my first round choice with. Sylveon isn't necessarily my favorite Pokemon. I do like it a lot. I guess that's not what I'm trying to say. But like what I'm saying is like this, I wasn't trying to team build around Sylveon, I guess. But it is really awesome. It starts a really good Fairy Dragon Steel core with that potential Steelix at the end that I'm really looking forward to. And it's just a really good Mon, and a Mon that I know a lot of people would want to draft. So that's why I drafted it. I had the 6th overall pick out of 16, if I'm not mistaken. So I knew if I waited any longer that this thing wouldn't be around. So I had to make this choice number 1. Then choice number 2 was Tornadus T. Tornadus T is very good because it covers the ground and fighting weaknesses that Steelix has. It just has good synergy that way. And it's a good Pokemon on its own, because it's got really amazing speed. It outspeeds Pokemon like Alakazam and Starmie and Raikou and things like that. Outspeeds Keldeo, Terrakion, everything else. This is a very good Assault Vest Pokemon, as I'm sure everybody knows. So it's going to be a really good counter to a lot of those special attackers. Just because it's really hard to wear down, especially when you factor in the Regenerator. It has like 300 HP, basically, like 300% HP. At least that's what it feels like when you deal with this thing. And it just has the move pool of a god. The thing, it's not like it has like, Flare Blitz and Hydro Pump and Thunder and all these really powerful moves, but it just has really good distribution. You can go through the list, Flying Stabs, but, dark moves that hit on both sides. It also gets Knock Off, gets Extra Sensory, Grass Knot, Smackdown, Heat Wave, Focus Blast, the list can go on and on, Superpower, Psychic, Sludge Wave, and it gets good support moves too with like Taunt and things like that. So yeah, this thing is best for its speed, for its ability, potentially for its bulk, and then if you give it a Life Orb, it's a really tremendous wall breaker. You slap Taunt on there, and it just puts in the work. So we are going to be naming this Tenzin after my boy Tenzin in Legend of Korra. That man is a badass. If you've ever watched Season 3, he puts in the work. And so this Tornadus T is going to be putting in the work this season as well. Now, the next pick that I wanted to make was actually Kyurem regular form, because that's another Pokemon that synergizes kind of well with Steelix, and it's just really powerful in general. It's going to complete the Fairy Dragon Steel Core that I have in mind, but that got sniped a few picks before this, before it was my next turn to draft. So I was thinking about what I wanted to take instead. I was thinking about Hydreigon to be another powerful special attacking dragon type. And then it dawned on me that Salamence is the perfect partner for Steelix because it resists ground and fighting, it resists fire, it resists water. That's all of Steelix's weaknesses. And this Salamence also gets Wish, which is excellent for healing up the Steelix. It gets the Defog, which is a really great support move. It gets Roost. And I can't believe that these are the things that we're talking about first before we even get into its amazing offensive potential. Base 135 attack is crazy. It's so good. And then the base 110 special attack isn't even bad either, especially when you consider that this thing does have the really powerful moves such as Draco Meteor, such as Fire Blast, such as Hydro Pump, and so on and so forth. So this thing is just amazing. You give it a Choice Scarf with Moxie, it's great. You give it, a Dragon Dance set, it's really amazing. I think Salamence might be the best Tier 2 Pokemon that's out there. It probably could be in Tier 1, and no one would really be upset about it. This thing just got banned from UU because it's so versatile. And so the draft format is just the perfect way to showcase that, just how amazing this thing can be. I've used this before in the past. It's really amazing, and it's going to put in the work. Next up, I wanted a Rapid Spinner because I have 2 flying Pokemon already, and I kind of have in the back of my head a couple other Pokemon that I like to draft that I know are not going to appreciate the hazards. And so I already have my Defogger, so Blastoise, which is like my go-to spinner, was off the board, so I went with Calamari, the Tentacruel, instead. And this thing is nice on its own, even if you're not running Rapid Spin. It gets really nice moves, such as, obviously, Scald, Ice Beam, but it also gets Acid Spray, as you can see here. It gets Knock Off, which is really great, Haze, Hex, Toxic Spikes, everything like that. It can run bulk on both sides. Usually if you're seeing like a defensive Tentacruel, you'll go like a full HP, full defense, and becomes just really good at taking hits on all sides. But you could invest straight up into Spadef with this thing. You could even throw an Assault Vest on there, and this thing is an automatic Volcanion check. Unless, someone's packing Earthquake on that Volcanion, which is not a bad choice. But, if you're Kyle and you're watching this, don't put Volcanion Earthquake on your team. Because I would cry. But anyway, and this thing has good speed too. Like that, then I love these bulky Pokemon that have good speed, because then you can really put pressure on your opponent's offensive Pokemon. Like Volcanion, for example, it has base 70. It hits, I'm not sure what it hits with level 50, but it hits 262 at level 100. Tentacruel on its own is 236, so you only have to invest like 100 EVs or something like that in order to outspeed, and then, you're in such a better position after that if you can outspeed those Pokemon. So yeah, Tentacruel's gonna be really great, and again, the Toxic Spikes is gonna be awesome. Knockoff support, Rapid Spin support, all are really great. Now, I wanted to grab Uxie with this next pick potentially, and there's also some like fire types that I wanted, like Entei and potentially Arcanine, and some stuff like that. I also wouldn't have hated the idea of getting like another water type, but the two big water types that I wanted were Vaporeon and Alomomola, because they could pass some really fat wishes around my team. But I already had 2 wish passers, and I had already gotten Tentacruel, and to be honest, both of those other water types I named got sniped, and Uxie also got sniped, so I decided to go with Mesprit instead, and I'm really glad that I did. I wanted a bulky Psychic type because that's really important to me on a team, to be able to check Pokemon like Medicham, like Lopunny, and things like that. And even though this thing, it's not the fastest, it's not the does not the best attacks and special attack stats, it can still be really good if you give it a Life Orb or a Choice Specs or a Choice Band or something like that. It's just really good, and it's got great coverage. It's got Bolt Beam coverage, it's got Fire Punch, it's got Psychic, it's got Signal Beam. Knockoff is obviously amazing. I've got a lot of knockoff users on this team already between Tornadus, Tentacruel, and Mesprit, so that's really awesome. Tricked, Toxic, lots of really great stuff. U-Turn is really important. And then the move that always deserves special mention is Healing Wish. Healing Wish is just so good. It allows you to play very reckless with your Pokemon, allows you to make predictions that will pay off incredibly in your favor with relatively little risk. It's not no risk, but relatively little risk, at least compared to what it would be if you didn't have this sort of support on your team. So yeah, Mesprit's a really good Healing Wish Pokemon, and it's another ground immunity, except for, Excadrill and Haxorus, but other than that, it's really great. Well, also Kyurem Black is worth mentioning. So yeah, I needed this Pokemon to check the fighting types, for sure, and I really love the move pool that this thing brings. You can run a Calm Mindset with Bolt Beam, you could run it Scarf, and it will be pretty good, and yeah, you can run it with Healing Wish. It even gets Stealth Rock, which is probably one of the moves I should have mentioned earlier. To combine with our Mesprit here, we decided to get a Pokemon that could spin block really well and also had lots of good support moves on its own. So we went with Kelemvor, the Spirit Tomb, Kelemvor being the God of the Dead. And this thing gets Destiny Bond, which is really great. It gets Memento, which is really nice. Sucker Punch, Will-O-Wisp, Shadow Sneak, it gets really great moves, and it gets Pursuit as well, so it's really nice for trapping some bulky Psychics that not are necessarily a problem for my team, but are just annoying in general. And it allows, it forces my opponent to play differently if they know that I'm going to be bringing Spirit Tomb on the team. And obviously this thing has garbage for speed. At least it does outspeed like a Moongus and stuff like that, Slowbro. But it's got decent enough attack stats. It's got pretty good defense and special defense. So yeah, you're going to see mostly like full HP sets, sometimes with attack or special attack investment. This thing does get Nasty Plot, if I'm not mistaken. It does, which is nice. Pain Split for some recovery. So yeah, I really wanted... one thing I've noticed is I'm not particularly good about drafting Ghost or Dark types in general in draft format. So I figured why not try and take care of both of those with one Pokemon. And it stinks because it's not a proper Ghost Resist, being part Ghost type, part Dark type. But, the typing just in general is so good. It's only weak to Fairy. And, we're bulky enough that we can deal with a lot of other things on our own. Alright, so we're flying right through this. Let's look then at the second half of our draft. Went with Nicola, naming it after Nikola Tesla, the Electros. I wanted to potentially get some other electric types. Jolteon would have been really amazing and the Jolteon got sniped. And then I was thinking about dipping down into tier 5 for Zebstrika, because that thing sits at a 116 base speed. which is a really awesome speed tier. It outspeeds things like Azelf and Starmie and things like that. But I decided Electros would be good because it was kind of like the best option that was left, because Heliolisk also got taken, but I wanted something a little bit bulkier as well. And this thing makes it a great Assault Vest user because it gets both Giga Drain and Drain Punch for some somewhat reliable recovery. Some ways to get back HP that you would otherwise would have if you were packing something like Leftovers, but it just makes you really bulky. It's got nice mixed attacking stats, and because you don't really care about speed, if you want to go mixed, you don't have to sacrifice your defenses. You can just go negative speed EVs or negative speed nature, and it's pretty much fine. But yeah, this thing just has another. It's kind of like Tornadus in that it has the move pool of a god, and it also has a momentum move being Volt Switch. Good lord, this thing even gets Outrage. That's crazy. And it's another knockoff user, which is nice. Does Spiritomb get knockoff? I'm not sure. We should probably figure that out. No, I didn't think it did, but it was worth looking. But yeah, so I have like 4 knockoff users on the team, which is great. Coil is actually really hilarious. I didn't even think about that. Like a Rest Coil set would be so good. But anyway. Yeah, this thing is just incredibly reliable because it doesn't have any weaknesses. Obviously, if you are facing off against one of those Mold Breaker Pokemon like Excadrill or Haxorus, it could be a problem. But otherwise, this thing is very good, and I'm looking forward to using it. Now, I knew that I needed a Fire type. That Fire type is something that I really wanted. I was thinking about going with Pyroar down in Tier 5, but at this point in the draft, I was looking at the options that were left. And I saw that this thing was still on the board, so I went with Volcarona, aka Amaterasu, Japanese sun god. And everybody knows what Volcarona does. It wins games on its own. You bring this in on a grass type that doesn't have Hidden Power Rock, and you win. The thing that I'm excited to potentially try, you don't have to run Quiver Dance on this thing for it to be a problem. You could just slap a Choice Specs on it and do damage, because what switches in on this? Very, very little is the answer. Very, very, very little. And it's got good enough bulk that you could run it as a defensive Pokemon. Obviously, the bulky Swords or Quiver Dance set is very popular. Gets Roost as a form of reliable recovery. Flame Body is a kind of underrated ability. It's not reliable, but just the 30% burn chance makes people think twice about hitting you with certain moves. So it acts as a deterrent in its own way. So this thing is amazing. The only downfall is its weakness to rocks. So we're gonna have to kind of make a special effort this season, especially with Pokemon like Salamence and Tornadus on our team, to keep hazards off the field, because it's going to hinder our team otherwise. And I've drafted plenty of Rapid Spinners and Defoggers in the past, but a lot of the time I just don't really worry about hazards that much, because they don't, unless my opponent spikes stacking, I don't know, I tend not to worry. But I'm not going to have that luxury this season with all of these Pokemon that are so strong. In order to abuse them, I'm going to have to get rid of the hazards. But that's going to be a good opportunity for me to grow and improve as a player, so I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, kind of along those lines, I feel like I needed another hazard remover besides Tentacruel and Salamence, and I wanted some more speed, and I wanted an Ice type, so Cryogonal down in Tier 5 kind of was the perfect match. This thing obviously has crap defense, but you can kind of play around that and anticipate the physical moves that are going to be coming out from your opponent. If you're staying in against something that's faster than this, they're probably packing a physical move, and pretty much any physical move is going to take this thing out. So just don't put yourself in that situation. Come in on something that you can Rapid Spin on, and get the heck out of there. And Ice typing just in general is very good offensively between Ice Beam and Freeze Dry. The only thing that really wants to take that on is Steel types, and I don't even think there's anything else besides that. I guess Fire as well. Fire kind of walls this, but I do know this thing gets. I swear it gets Water Pulse. It does, yeah. Does it get Surf or anything like that? No, it doesn't look like it. But yeah, you put that Water Pulse on there. We take care of those Fire types. No big deal, no problem. Put Hidden Power Ground on this thing, take out those steel types. Hidden Power Fire is also fine, but Hidden Power Fire, you lose the speed Ivy, which is not always that great. And yeah, you know, it gets screens. This season gets knockoff as well. That's amazing. I have 5 knockoff users. I've never had that many knockoff users before. And I shard for a tiny bit of priority. Obviously, we have a kind of pitiful attack stat, but it's just good to know. So yeah, this Pokemon, Cryogonal, it definitely has its use. And it's very speedy. It can be very good, especially defensively, because it has that big, what is it, 135 special defense? Yeah, that's crazy. That's as much special defense as Volcarona has special attack, so that's awesome. So yeah, even with like an Assault Vest, this thing isn't going to be a bad wall. You know, it's just going to depend on whether there's rocks up or not, how reliable this thing is. Does it get Recover as well? Am I making that up? No, it does get Recover. That's amazing. Cryogonal, why are you so underrated? So yeah, that was the Pokemon that I took there. Then I needed one more Pokemon before I got to Steelix. I had been saving this next Pokemon in the back of my mind because I know it's a Pokemon that doesn't get drafted all that often. And that Pokemon, as you can see, is Breloom, aka Shrew Manchu. Shout out to the Fu Manchu. Breloom's awesome. It's one of my favorite Pokemon. I loved using it in my ORAS playthrough. I loved using it in the original, you know, Ruby and Sapphire games. It's been one of my favorite Pokemon for a long time. And it's just so strong. Like, it's really, really underrated just how strong it is. Because base 130 attack is nothing to mess with. It's got the strongest Mach Punch in the game. Like, I think, let me look at this thing. So if I do Scizor. Yeah, so Scizor and Breloom tie for the strongest priority in the game. Because this thing's also base 130 and also gets Technician. So yeah, they're tied for the strongest priority in the game with their Mach Punch and Bullet Punch, respectively. And that's really important, especially if you go up against a team like Lucky Lads, who has Excadrill and Tyranitar. Like, Breloom just hard stops them, basically, unless they're packing a Shoppleberry. But, you know, so it's really strong. It's got a really powerful Bullet Seed. But the nice thing is that it doesn't even end there. Like, you know, you always think of moves like Spore on Breloom as well. But this thing gets Bulk Up, it gets Swords Dance, Sub-Focus Punch, Leech Seed. You know, all these really awesome moves. And you can sometimes run Poison Heal if you'd rather, instead of the Technician. So it's just amazing. It's so, so amazing. And yeah, the speed isn't the best, and it's not the best bulk, but you don't really need a ton of speed when you have Mach Punch. You know, like, you can deal with it, and if you're not taking hits, you don't need the bulk. So yeah, Breloom's going to be a really important member of this team. I anticipate bringing this quite a lot, because it's easy. It's like the strongest, like I said, the strongest priority in the game, except for like a Sucker Punch from a Bisharp, I guess. That's the only other thing that's worth saying. But Sucker Punch is not reliable. You know, it's always about the, you always have those mind games, and I don't necessarily like playing them. And then that brings me to my last pick, my 11th pick, which is the Mega Steelix. I knew I could wait all the way till the end to take this thing. There was no way that anybody was going to take it. Just look at this thing. Base 230 defense. It's 250 uninvested. That's crazy. Like, you know, a Jolly Mega Lopunny hits 205 speed. Completely invested. It's wild. Like, even, let's like look at another example. So like Hoopa Unbound. Let's make it level 50. 50. Let's invest in its special attack here. Let's make it modest. Or not modest, or whatever this is. 244. That's still less than this Pokemon's base defense uninvested. Okay? This is ridiculous. You know, and is defense as valuable as that monster special attack? Maybe not. But it's just amazing. Like, you know, you put full HP investment and full special defense investment, and this thing is untouchable. It is, like, completely untouchable. And, you know, and 125 is not bad for power either. Like, you know, you can't run a Life Orb with it like you can with a Pokemon like Breloom, which has a kind of similar attack stat. But, you know, this thing isn't supposed to be a sweeper. It's not a late game cleaner. And I think that's kind of one of the, I guess, the traps that I think players all the time run into with Megas. Like, Megas don't have to be your all-star necessarily, even though, like, it's easy to think of them in that way. Like, it's okay that my Mega Steelix is going to be a role Pokemon on my team. It's not going to lead the league in kills. It's not going to apply a lot of offensive pressure every week. But it is something that my opponent's going to have to account for. Like, how are they going to check this thing? Like, this is going to be such a good defensive answer to a lot of stuff, and it's going to affect team building every week. And that's why, for tier 4, I just felt like I had to take it. It's just so good for the cost that it was to take it. It's like if you put Latios down in tier 3, and you're like, well, it would be stupid not to take this. It's so good for the price that you're paying. So that's the idea with the Steelix, and then we're gonna name it Iroquois after our good friend Iroquois Pilskin, aka Solid Snake. Shoutouts to all you Metal Gear Solid 2 fans out there. I know Raiden wasn't the most popular, but everybody likes Solid Snake, so that's all good. And that's gonna be the team, you guys. So I really love this team. It's really well rounded. It's got a great bit of speed between Tornadus and Volcarona. It's got Cryogonal at 105. A lot of base 100 Pokemon, which is really nice. Good sort of U-turn and Volt turn initiative, which is going to allow us to bring in our really big sweepers, or not sweepers, but wall breakers such as Sylveon and Breloom and things like that. Really good defensive mons, like with the Steelix, the Sylveon, the Tentacruel, the Electros, the Tornadus, and the Spiritomb, and even Mesprit. So yeah, I just feel like every Pokemon on this team can excel in a variety of roles, and got good speed, good offense, good defense, good move selection. 5 knockoff users is what I just noted, is what I just tallied up. Healing Wish, Memento, Baton Pass, Quiver Dance, Swords Dance, Dragon Dance. I am just like naming moves now. But that's the nice thing. I can name just literally any move in the game, or practically, and I'm gonna have it on my team. I've got Scald too, which is always nice. So anyway, that is going to be the team recap. We are going to be starting games very soon. Be sure to stay tuned to my channel and also to my Twitter to get updates on when these games are going to be going up. Our Week 1 opponent is going to be Dallas Staryu, aka Espelancer, and that man has a crazy team of his own that we'll go over in the Week 1 team builder. Hope you guys are looking forward to it. Please be sure to check back for more Pokemon content, and until the next time, I will see you all later.